morning. I'm Mark, the Clue Luthier, and today we're going to start working on mostly the sides of the guitar and getting it prepared. The first thing to do is sand it down and smooth it out, make sure there are no imperfections, and for that I have this trusty tool. So let's get started.
All right, so this is something I got from Elevate Luthery. I've shown it before, but it's really cool. It's like a drum sander, or maybe I don't know, maybe not a drum sander, but anyway, that is mobile. And real quick, what I'm going to do is suit up, because this kicks out a lot of dust. This thing does a great job. First thing I noticed on this, and I don't know if it's, I think because it was laminated, it is incredibly straight compared to my last two. There was one spot in particular back here that a little bit rounded over, but it took it right down, nice and flush. And it was kind of easy to see where it was, because I could see where the sawdust was coming up and in the middle, and then it evened out, and yeah, it's looking really good. So I have a couple issues, and I already fixed one. That was easier. This one I'm concerned about. I don't know how well it shows up. I'm sure, zoom in. This brace was too thick. I think it's grooved okay for the liner, but not for this. I did not come down far enough. So I think what I'm going to try to do, the only thing I can think of, is I'm going to start out by trying to remove this here. I've got a very small router bit that I'm going to take in and just see if I can clear this out to relieve this. I mean, I still have the option of sanding this down a little thinner to make it the bulge a little less visible. The binding will cover it, but it's still going to be there. And so that's what I'm going to try to tackle next. Well, that isn't going to change anything. The brace is high enough here. I'm going to say that's, on this side, a 32nd of an inch. It might even be a 16th, I'm not sure. But I'm not going to be able to move it. So I'm simply going to I'm going to do some more sanding. Maybe there isn't a big bump anymore, but there's some. And the binding will cover that. I'm just going to have to deal with that. I'll show you the other issue I had. Right here, it didn't quite glue up properly. Once I got it out of there, I looked, and there was a little bit of movement. So the glue didn't really grab. So what I did is I took, sorry, should have had one of these handy. I pulled apart just a little bit, worked some glue down there, then took some spindle clamps I had, 2 of them, and pulled it tight. And that seemed to work fine. Made sure I had any glue up cleaned out on the inside. So yeah, I'm ready for the next step. Okay, before I move on to the next step, I did some sanding on that one spot from the last video. Looks pretty good. I was able to, I didn't have to take off as much wood as I thought, so that relieved me a little bit. The next step, I decided that before I route the channel for my binding, I'm going to make sure I can actually bend it. Since
I haven't done ebony yet, and I certainly haven't done binding. So that's the next thing we're going to do. It's the same process, really, as the sides were. The only difference is I did tape these to kind of keep a space. I've seen it done both ways. This seemed to make some sense to make sure that heat gets all the way around there. They're not all pinched together. So I'm just gonna wrap these in parchment paper. Actually, I'll change the angle so you can actually see what I'm talking about. I realize you can only see one end of this, but it's the same on the other end, believe it or not. So I'm actually gonna spritz this really well. I've read that ebony really does like a lot of water. And once I do this, get it nice and wet, I'm going to turn it over, seal it, and I'm going to let it sit for a few to soak in. I would rather have too much at this juncture than not enough. Because I only have so many of these. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to grab some tin foil. All right, got a mark here to match. What I'm going to do, I don't want to get those wrapped up too tight. I want this sealed really well. Let's see through this if we get that. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this together. I just might wait a couple minutes before turning it on. So, boy, that is, okay, I just have to keep them to the side. Heating blanket. These are just a little longer than I need by, well, 4 or 5 inches, but that's why the buckles are kind of in the way. Okay. All right. Oops, I'm doing the wrong end. I did this before. It's on this end. And I put one more on. All right, I take these off because otherwise I can't get it through. And move this around a little bit so we can see it. All right, I have them loaded into my bender, clipped up, and the heater's plugged in but not turned on yet. I had that center line right here. Now, it matters a lot less with these because they're too long anyway, but hopefully I'll end up with some useful ends for trim. Who knows? Okay, so I've got my thermometers ready, and get one in here, another one in here. I have one in the middle, and let's bend some wood. All right, I'm gonna sit here and let this cook for a couple minutes. They're flexible enough. They're still quite wet. I think what I'm gonna do is to take them out of here. I'm gonna put them back between these. I'm gonna put them back in the form to let them dry out so that, because they are quite wet. And maybe that'll help them keep their form a little bit. I'm afraid if they once they dry out, they won't be quite as pliable. All right, so I'm gonna do that. Well, good morning again. And I took these out of the bender and all I did was put them back in open to dry out because they were wet. And I'm glad I did. They're holding the shape better. And it works quite well. I'm really happy. I didn't know about bending these. I kind of like the idea of plenty of water. So before I do the scary part and channel this out, I'm going to do a little bit more handstanding just to make sure I'm where I need to be. And so I'll do that off camera, and I'll come back with the scary part. I was just making sure the back was leveled off before I bind it or create the channel. And I noticed something, and hopefully this will show up. And it happened on the other end too, and there might be some on the side, but let's see. I was kind of like this, and you notice how this sawdust isn't coming off. There are little spots along here that are indented. And the more I look at it, I think it's from the gold bar, even though I had rubber tips. It's just those are places I would have put them. I can't think of another reason. And they're a little shiny, like maybe the rubber came off. So I think I'm going to have to start using small cauls to protect it. I'll have to think about that. But yeah, I just thought I should point that out. All right, I think I'm going to call this a video. It's taken longer than I thought. So next time we come back, we'll be, well, first thing is routing the channels for the binding. And we also have to do the end block. That'll all be one part of one process. So thanks for showing up, and hope to see you soon. Bye.